Live here.
Live!
But we don't have to necessarily know what that means.
What's the someday of Black?
I don't
there's
know
a
that we
reason
want-
this story happens now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the movie writes itself. Ooh. Well,
I'm still streaming. How do I stop streaming? No!
hello.
Hello!
Welcome, everyone, to Ben and Jake Write a Movie, November 15th at 1:30 p.m. Yes, we're half an hour earlier today because that's what life does.
That's what life does to you sometimes.
Right?
Sometimes it says, hey, your daughter needs to go and do something important. Dentist,
Right.
doctor, singing lessons, soccer, learn
But you
how
gotta still write.
learning how to shave a yak.
You gotta find ways to get in front of the keyboard, or in this case, in front of the camera, because
Yes.
that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all
Right?
about, baby. It's
So
true.
here we are, and I'm excited. We've got
Yes.
some questions to answer.
We
this
did have a couple of questions to answer. I know that there was
there's-
someone who
there's a few.
posted a question during our show the other week, and we said we're going to get back to it on Monday, and then we didn't.
Yes,
because
and
we're bad
also,
people.
there were a couple of comments and questions that were left on our YouTube page as well.
Yeah.
By the way, we love questions, so we are happy to answer your questions during.
And also, caveat, these are based on our opinions and experience. They're
Always.
not necessarily the gospel truth.
We are not
There is no
gurus.
gospel truth.
We are not writer gurus. We are just writers.
Because writer gurus suck.
Yeah. It's funny.
But,
somebody posted on Reddit. They posted, if you could ask Robert McKee one question, what would it be? And my question was, Mr. McKee, considering the majority of your professional experience is story consultant on animated Barbie movies, what did you believe you had to contribute to writers of today writing successful screenplays?
I'm sure he's been asked that before. I'm sure he has. Well, it's interesting. We could go into, whether or not, I believe that some teachers are meant to teach and meant to inspire thought. I love John Truby. I love a lot of what John Truby has to say. I've really liked studying him. John Truby isn't, to my knowledge, a screenwriter, and yet he's written really interesting books on the nature of story.
But do you think that, okay, if it's a philosophical kind of analysis of story and the hit, like Joseph Campbell, I'm going to look at myths and I'm going to, and from an academic almost standpoint, look at what the myths are, then I go, okay, all right, fine. But if you're going to tell me how to do something, you should have done it yourself. Like, for example, you don't have a doctor start doing surgery just coming out of college. No, they have to do a residency. You know why? Because they need to learn from actual fucking surgeons. Right?
I think in the realms of art and creativity, it's interesting because I think, can you ask questions that promote
everybody has an
thoughtful things, but it's like I've read both Story and I've read Truby, I've read Christopher Vogel. These are all things, and again, I don't look at those as
I read them.
Like I don't look at them as Bible examples of how to do it, but they got me thinking in certain ways.
But a lot of people do. I mean, they're considered gurus for a reason. And a lot of people treat their word like gospel. And a lot of people do pay an enormous amount of money to go see them live.
They do.
And they make more money doing what they're doing than they would probably as a screenwriter.
And there are many, many things out there. I think in many lines of work whereby you are hopeful of this thing, acting as well. How many casting director workshops did I do when I used to be an actor? Come and pay $100 to do this casting, and you're hoping, you're thinking, I'm going to meet someone, I'm going to connect with someone.
You know what's interesting about that? I will say, and I did those as well when I first moved out to be an actor. What's interesting to me about those, and they're kind of they're kind of taking advantage of young actors. I totally agree. And they give you this idea, well, maybe I'll cast you.
Yeah.
But at least the people that you are quote unquote learning from are people in the business who could give you a job one day.
I hear that.
You're learning from the real deal. Like what I love about Masterclass, for example, and I don't think that it's the end all be all either. However, if I want to learn about filmmaking, Martin Scorsese is a pretty good fucking teacher, or James Cameron, you know, and you know, or if I want to learn about TV writing, Shonda Rhimes is a really good teacher.
Yeah.
Like I would much rather learn from working professionals. I've only ever taken one screenwriting class. It was one class. It was at UCLA Extension. And my teacher was a man named Quentin Peoples. And he was a working screenwriter. He wasn't just an author of books about screenwriting. He taught at UCLA Extension because he enjoyed teaching. Because he felt like he had something to offer to new screenwriters. But in his other time, he was working in Hollywood. He had active projects at that moment, one with Billy Crystal at the time, I believe. And so you go, oh, well, you're the kind of person I actually want to learn from, because you could spend all day learning craft. If you don't know how to make a movie if you don't know how to write for the marketplace, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
And so
I hear it. And but it's interesting though, because as an actor, I was taught by both people who had been and were working actors, and then who also were just very, very, very good acting teachers as well. You know, who got me thinking in certain ways and asking certain questions and teaching me how to do exercises and observing those exercises. So I personally think that there's room for both. I think there is room for learning from genuine people, experiencing the ins and outs of a chosen field, and people who are good. But again, I think it's really important, especially for emerging writers, to not get for example, there's so many screenwriting competitions out there, so many. And what qualifies you to run a screenwriting competition? Like I think that's what you have to look at in each particular example. Go, what actually qualifies you? Why do we need to say, oh, this was in the Camus Screenwriting Festival, this was in the Northridge Screenwriting Festival and placed pretty high. Who are you?
I'll turn that same question though to these guru teachers.
Yeah.
What qualifies them?
Sure. And it may, and again, I think you have to look at it in each individual circumstance. And
people
do you respond to what they're saying?
Yeah. Well, and
that I think is
true. But I also look at there's a lot of self-help teachers out there. There's a lot of people who, it's not that they have necessarily bad things to say. Like my favorite thing is hearing about a life coach and knowing them personally and knowing that their life is total shit, but that they're teaching other people how to be better with their lives. And I go, well, on the one hand, not sure you should be the person telling people how to live their lives. And yet on the other hand, maybe you have some good knowledge that you can partake in. Is there something you can take away from it?
And that's it, isn't it? You go, we don't know what our doctor's health is like. We don't know necessarily what our psychiatrist's mental health is like.
In the office.
Absolutely right.
My grandfather used to smoke cigars. He was like the top pediatrician in his
Anyway, I think when it comes to screenwriting, I think it's very important to be discerning about if you are spending money on something, really be discerning about it, whether it's a book, whether it's a course. Again, I don't think you should be spending thousands of dollars, because I call it feeding the hope machine.
Right.
And I just think that time is better spent writing pages, reading
scripts, and watching movies. Yes, exactly. What we were talking about last week, actually.
Right. What were these questions? Because one of those was kind of somewhat pertinent to this, wasn't it? It was about an emerging screenwriter saying, "Oh, I've heard this," and we said we were going to talk about it on camera.
Yeah. So one of the questions that was asked. So there's 3 comments that we'll get to, I think. The first one, just because it's on my mind at the moment, has to do with writing samples and writing writing to sell. And this was a conversation that we had a few episodes ago. If you haven't seen it, you can go back and listen. And the question / comment, really, and it wasn't
yeah.
a criticism. It was like, nice conversation about this. In this particular person's opinion, he said he had heard a lot of people say that because it's so difficult to sell anything, and that for emerging screenwriters, it's far more likely for them to sell a low budget or micro budget movie, and yet that micro budget movie may not fully express your capabilities as a writer, that writing a sample that may not have any chance in selling but can show your capabilities would be a good way to potentially, he used the word pitch a manager. I assume that means as a submission.
Yeah.
And that could help you get meetings off of that sample.
Sure.
I have a very strong opinion of this, and I have a feeling we probably disagree slightly on it, which is totally fine. Excuse me for that.
So I think of the example of Balls Out. If you know the script, it was, I think, I'll probably butcher this, but I want to say it was written.
The story. Yeah.
I want to say it was perhaps written in or around the 2007 strike. It may not have been, but ultimately what it was two writers, one of whom, Malcolm Spellman, was Malcolm Spellman. Right. But they wrote this screenplay as the pen name, the Robotard 3000.
Oh, I remember. Yes. Okay.
And they just went, fuck it. It was a fuck it script. The term being, fuck it. I'm just going to write whatever the fuck I want. I'm just going to get something out there. And I'm just going to go, fuck it.
Right.
And they wrote this script, and the script's fucking hilarious. And it kind of went around town at the time of being like,
yeah,
have you read this script? And I remember they read it. I'm not sure if this podcast is still going. I don't think it is. But they used to do the Blacklist table reads where they would do a podcast reading of scripts they felt were good, and it was the very first one they did, and it was just so fucking funny. It was so funny. And I think with that they went, fuck it, let's just write whatever the fuck. They didn't even put their own names on it, and it went around town as being like, oh, this is the crazy script.
I wonder what their thoughts were. I mean, I haven't ever listened to them speak about it.
But I mean, they didn't write it as them.
Yeah, but yes and no. I mean, we all know that it was them now, and just because you put it's a funny name that goes along with the script, so I could see doing that as part of the selling of the script.
Maybe,
like,
yeah. Now, do I think they wrote it as a sample script, or did they just go, we're going to write the thing that we want to write as a fuck it script? Right. And I do think there's a difference. And I think it comes to what you were saying the other week. If I'm writing something with an eye to it, the final thing being a sample, okay, I guess. But like, where's the passion in that? Well, where do I connect my passion in writing a sample?
I think the way that I think about it and verbalize it is, when we're writing screenplays, we hope, and hopefully you take the position almost, because it's better than even hoping. Do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah, sure.
You know that what you're writing could be a movie. Otherwise, why are you writing it?
Totally.
And that's, I guess, where I mean you don't write samples. Because if you're writing something that no way could possibly be a movie, it's actually not a good sample.
Right.
Because the whole point of being able to send a script out to people is to show that you can write a movie. Yeah. And if your script is good enough to be a movie, then it could sell.
And it's what we were talking about yesterday. The screenplay is not the end product. The screenplay is a stepping stone in the creation of this thing that's going to become a movie.
Right.
So, again, it's what we were talking about The Princess. We said, we want to write The Princess. We want to do fucking Arya Stark in a tower who fights her way down. It's going to be fucking nuts, crazy action. We've never seen it before.
Right.
And our manager was like, I don't know where that sells, but if it doesn't, it will be a good sample. And we were like, fuck it, we're going to write it anyway. It was almost our fuck it script. To a certain degree, we were like, fuck it, we just want to write this. We don't care what you think.
Yeah, I guess to do it. Consider that to be fuck it. I mean, I think there was always a sense, and we got feedback from lots of other people who said that's a fucking movie.
Totally, absolutely right, for sure. And here's the thing: if it hadn't sold, it would be a good sample.
Well, yeah, that's what I had said the other day in our other thing about Winter's Night.
Yeah.
We sold Winter's Night, never got made, but it's a great sample.
Absolutely.
But why? Because it could be a movie. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Movie. I hope one day it becomes a movie.
Yeah.
But if your mindset is, well, I'm trying to write something to get a manager. Well, what does that even mean? And I'm not, and I don't mean, certainly I'm not criticizing
no,
the person who left the comment
in any way. No,
totally. Heard this from other people.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that there should only, in my opinion, be one reason to write a script for a movie. And that is because you believe that story should be a movie. If it shouldn't be a movie, well, what other medium could it be? Maybe it should be a pilot. Maybe it should be a book. Maybe it should be something else. But if you believe that story should be a movie, then write it as a movie. And if it's more ambitious than you can sell at that point in your career, it doesn't mean you can't sell it in 10 years.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be writing it with the intention that one day this will sell for $1 million.
Totally.
Like, that should be, you should believe in every ounce of your body that every script you write deserves to be out in the world as a movie.
Completely.
And so that's what I mean by not writing samples versus writing movies to sell. And interestingly, that segues into the other question. And the question was, how do you know when an idea is better to be a pilot? And that's why the segue is there.
Yeah.
Totally. If you have an idea and you're like, I really think this is a great idea. Should I write a pilot or pitch this as a TV show versus does it make a good movie? Or how do we decide, you know?
Yeah. So
I feel like I'm butchering the question.
But it was it was along those lines. In fact, this is the question we're going to answer anyway. And I think it was along the lines again of like, how do you know it's? Yeah, it was strangely phrased, wasn't it? But anyway,
look back and
have a little look, see if we can find it. I'll riff on this one for the moment.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's an interesting question. Sometimes you may have an idea that does suit both. You may go, there is a length of story here that I could tell. For example, we have the rights to a shopping agreement on a book series at the moment, New York Times bestselling book series. We're currently about to take it out next year. And this book series is a trilogy of books. It has a really interesting world that is built up and could be, because of the length of these books, this trilogy could make a really interesting TV series. We're not pitching it first as a TV series. We want to go ahead and pitch the live action film version of it.
Sure.
That said, it's not a super bold, high concept. You can't explain this world or idea that easily. It takes a little bit of time to kind of explain, oh, well, this happens and these things happen, and here's the overall thing. I think if you have a really strong, bold, high concept idea, I
found it, by the way.
Great. Some people mean that that's a very easy to explain. I think that's a little bit reductive. I think it's like that the idea of the movie is the most bold thing. The idea is the most bold thing presented in this thing, not the character, not the world, but the idea of what this thing is so bold. That's what I mean by high concept. I think those generally work better as movies. I think if you're going into and you're drawn more into characters and world and wanting to tell a really expansive story, that might go, oh, we want to do it that. Now, but again, like sometimes it's both. For example, I'll use Legion of the Wolf as an example. Legion of the Wolf was an idea that we had some time ago. And the concept of it is it's the origin of the first werewolf, but set to the backdrop of the fall of Rome. We thought, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to us? And that's quite a high concept idea.
And that's the elevator pitch. You just say that, and someone goes, "Oh, that's cool."
Oh, cool. Origin of the first werewolf. Where do they come from? Well, they come from Rome. Cool, great. Two big ideas. Bosh. Put them together. And originally, it was going to be a movie. And then we thought, there's a way to explore that story through a TV show. You know, so sometimes it does hit both. Anyway, what was
I would say, you know, just to kind of put my 2 cents on what you were saying, is that I don't like Legion of the Wolf is a great example. I actually do think that high concept doesn't necessarily mean movie or TV, and I think high concept is good no matter what medium you're in terms of, you know, is this something that I can very easily I mean, I know you're saying a bold idea. I do think that there is a certain amount of, is it easy to understand? Like Legion of the Wolf, for example, origin story of the first werewolf set to the fall of Rome. I get it. Yeah. It's a reverse Rapunzel meets the Raid. I get it. You know, like those, that's high concept in my personal take as well. It's one of those terms that gets thrown around all the time and everybody has their own beliefs on what it means. But like, there are I think there are TV shows that can be done that way. Then you can start with a high concept idea, and then you have to go into obviously the complexities of how do you make this now a series and not just a singular thing, you know. So to clarify Riley's question, when you two have decided that you want to write a new pilot, what are some of the things you look for in your ideas that give you the indication that it will work better for an ongoing story versus one that works best as a feature? And would love to hear any insights you have on working on pilots. So we could do an entire episode on working on pilots. So for the sake of the fact that we're already 21 minutes in, we will, Riley, talk about the difference between working on a pilot versus working on a movie script at a later date. But in terms of ideas, and when we have an idea, how do we go, hey, we want to write a pilot now. So what's a good idea for a pilot? You know, it's interesting. I think that we usually will start really with just what's a good story. And not go, this is a movie or this is a TV show first, unless it's so obvious. Like if you have an idea for something procedural, and by that I mean like a cop show, a doctor show, the type of show where every week is, you know, a similar style thing.
Could be a self-contained story in a world,
and that's going to continue on and on and on and on and on. Well, that's obviously a TV show. Tends not to be the kind of stuff Jake and I tell as stories for the most part. So that's not usually the way it is. But, you know, there is an example of this, another Legion of the Wolf thing. We adapted a book called The House of the Scorpion. It's a fantastic book. Originally, it was sent to us to adapt as a movie. And, you know, we read it and we both saw very different things in it, ultimately decided that we were going to pass on adapting it as a movie. Lo and behold, a few months later, we end up in a meeting randomly with a wonderful producer, Marisa Pullman, and she says, hey, we're doing House of the Scorpion. We said, oh, that's so funny. We were sent that actually as a book to think about. And, you know, it's a really great book. We just couldn't really land between the two of us on the movie take. And she was like, well, have you ever thought about it for TV? And immediately we both were like, boom. Yeah.
Why didn't we think of it for TV? Yeah.
Now that is interesting. And I think that the first step is to go, what is the interesting thing about this story that I want to tell? If it's about something that you feel needs or would be better served to be told over a longer period of time, then that's a TV show. If it's a story that feels like it could be told in 2 hours, then that's a movie. And I think that you have to be honest with yourself when you come up with an idea and you go, oh, I want to do this thing about this character who goes on like adventures that are, you know, like all over the world and da 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 da. And you're going, well, like, sure, you could do, you know, a movie of that, but maybe it would be better served as a TV show because maybe you get to explore that character more. Maybe you get to understand where they're coming from a little bit
Yeah.
more.
It's interesting. I think about what our friend Mike Lee said about the differences between TV and features. He said, in features, you close all of the doors behind you for the most part. You're not left going, I wonder what happens with that, you know? Whereas when you write a pilot, you leave all of the doors open. And I think about that a lot. I think it's a really great way of thinking about it. And I think the question comes to, well, with your idea, do you want to tell one singular story and close all the doors behind you?
Right.
Or do you want to keep a bunch of doors open and keep opening them? Like, what is it about this idea? And it's interesting because we are in the process of working on a pilot. We're attached to a Sony TV that is a book series that we're going to be taking out as a TV series in the new year. Another one. And it was presented to us, well, if it doesn't work in TV, we can also do it as a movie. And yet they're two different kinds of things. And in the TV show version, we're having to explore and expand a lot more that is not present in the book. Characters that perhaps aren't there, or sections of the world that we're creating so that we can keep opening these doors and exploring different aspects of the world. And that's great because you go, oh, let's just go and have fun and see where we can go and do all these different things. What's the episode where this happens? What's the episode where that happens? The world, the characters and the situation are created in the book. But we are going, let's not go, you know, A to B to C. Let's see all these different things from all these different character perspectives while still going on that main journey and yet opening a lot more doors as we go. So that can also be it, is that if you have an idea, you go, oh, great, it's this fantastic idea about the origin of the first werewolf. Go, okay, well, as a TV series, there's going to be a whole plot line that's about his wife and kid that he left in Rome. There's going to be a whole plot line about the guy who he served with and who isn't where he is. There's going to be a whole plot line about the mysterious general of the barbarians that you wouldn't have the time to explore in a 2-hour movie. But suddenly you have the time and freedom to explore if you're doing it for TV. So
not all ideas are ideas where you want to explore those things.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, like the movie that we're writing on this podcast doesn't feel like a TV show to me.
No.
It feels like the kind of thing. Now, do I want a sequel? Probably. We always want franchises. It doesn't feel like a one and done necessarily.
Right.
But there is a difference between a movie whereby we're telling one story for 2 hours.
Yes.
Versus a show whereby you're going to capture an audience long enough to tell a story over 20 hours or 20 different stories or whatever it might be. And, you know, I think you start to feel, it's kind of a feeling. You just kind of get a feeling like, do I want to live in that world with those people for that long?
And I'll add, you know, again, something kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, when it comes to TV, generally you tune in each week because you want a bit of character drama. You know, while there is a plot at play for a lot of TV, especially, you know, non-procedural shows, more serialized shows, there is absolutely a plot at play.
Yeah.
You are tuning in this week to see, oh, what's going to happen with Jon Snow and his wildling girlfriend? Are they going to get together? Like, you're drawn into characters. That's not to say characters are not important in film. They absolutely are so important in film. But you are pulled along by watching those characters in a plot, I feel, in a movie. Whereas in TV show, I kind of feel like you're more attached to the characters and the plot almost kind of sits. It's like, what is the balance of those things? You know, I think in film, it's a bit more plot-based. In TV, it's a bit more character-based. So.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with like how you expand out your idea. You know, when we have started with ideas and gone, maybe, you know, we've had ideas where we go, oh, that's really interesting, but maybe that makes a better TV show than
totally.
You know, or maybe that makes a better movie than it does a TV show. And I think that it does have a lot to do with like, how much story is there that I would want to tell
Completely.
You know, if
Completely.
it feels like there's too much that I would need to
Yeah.
tell in order to fit
Yeah.
into 2 hours,
Yeah.
then it's a TV show. If
Like,
it
for
feels,
example,
you
a
know,
couple of years ago, we wrote a body swap movie, and that's a single story.
yeah,
That's not a TV show.
no,
That's just not. I mean, is there a body swap TV show? Maybe, but I don't know what that is. I find that it'd be inherently confusing
right.
because at some point they're going to be like, you're going to lose what you find fun about a body swap movie. Like Freaky Friday doesn't need to be 10 episodes.
But they'll make it.
But they'll make it. They totally will make it. They'll totally
A lot of movies get adapted into TV shows now, and you go,
what's the Freaky Friday TV
why
show?
is that? Why does that movie need to be told over 3 seasons? I don't understand. It was interesting. There was a show, Shooter, that was adapted from the movie Shooter.
Yeah.
Actually, not a terrible show.
Sure.
But the first season was literally just retelling the story of the movie.
Totally.
Really drawn out.
Right. Sure.
and I enjoyed it. I liked the movie. And then you kind of go, and then they really just had to like figure out where they wanted to go with those characters, because once the movie was over, once they finished off the plot of the movie, it was like, and
now what? Yeah, totally. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
And so I think that, you know, a lot of things, some shows I can see how they become adapted as to in a movie, or like Lethal Weapon becoming a TV show. As much as I rolled my eyes, I go, okay, I get that.
Yeah, you these kind of characters. I'm going to tune in,
guys, and using the IP of Lethal Weapon to get people to watch the show.
Absolutely,
I get it.
Yeah,
you know. Or, you know, Star Trek starts as a TV show. You go, yeah, I totally see how that becomes a movie also.
Absolutely right. I could see, what's the one long episode? Oh, where this happens.
Right.
Yeah,
sure. Instead of 1 hour, we get to explore this one story for 2 hours now.
Totally. Or The Golden Girls would have made a great movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I love The Golden Girls as a kid.
I love The Golden Girls. I did.
Most of it went over my head.
Last comment that I just want to get to here, and it's a very quick one. Basically, one of our viewers mentioned to us that there actually is an episode on a series called Supernatural.
Oh, yeah.
Season 10, episode 3, no less, whereby there's a curse on one of the brothers. He becomes a demon. He has to team up with an angel in order to like get rid of the mark of Cain or something along those lines. And I appreciate very much this person pointing that out. And Jake and I talked about it briefly, and we came to the conclusion that great to know, not an issue for this movie. For multiple reasons. And I think this is partly always bringing it back to the business side in this first half of the show. From a business perspective, number one, we're not stealing their idea. We didn't even know it existed. But the reality is, like, from a copyright perspective, there's no issues there. Number two, it's a single episode. It's not like the entire show is based on a demon and an angel trying to get the mark of Cain off of them. So that... I'm not the odds of an executive who we're trying to sell this to having seen that one episode and going, you're stealing the Supernatural episode. That I'm not worried about. And then number three, even if it was a show whereby it was, you know, a vampire hunter lives in a small town where vampires come, it's like, you got to kind of weigh is anyone going to care? Like, can this still live in the movie space, even if it's already lived in the TV space as a separate
standalone separate idea?
And I think in this case, it does.
I think so too.
So that's that. Those are our questions.
Thanks for pointing that out, whoever that was. It's good. And it's funny because when we were looking at the Mark of Cain, when we just Googled Mark of Cain on that episode, that's actually the symbol that comes up is from Supernatural.
Yeah. We'll have to find out if there's any public domain versions of the Mark of Cain that we aren't taking, because it clearly eventually we'll need a designer to come up with one.
Yes.
I think for the script, what's interesting about the script is that we don't have to specify exactly down to the minute
Yes, exactly what it looks like.
The fact that it's a mark that starts like a brand on the back that's glow like red or
And
whatever.
you could put a visual representation of it in.
No. I'm saying you can put a visual representation without doing the exact visual representation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
and also knowing that like you are going to have a designer that's going to come in and do their own thing anyway, and a director who will have their opinion on what the mark of Cain should look like. Unless there is a biblical reference, which would be cool if there actually is.
Yeah, we didn't actually find one, did we? It was
no, it's more like other various
other interpretations of it.
We saw like tattoos and shit like that,
but they were a lot of them. Funny enough, were tattoos of the one from Supernatural. It was very funny.
Yeah. I wonder where they got it. Yeah, I wonder if it was just the designer on the show that said, "Hey, this is
going to look like this.
This is like a good thing for the market. Why not?"
Yeah.
Right.
So speaking of which, let's get into our. So we had a very good conversation I felt yesterday about villains.
Yes.
And about our villain, and we did go in briefly after the show, didn't we? And just add what we talked about.
Added what we talked about to our outline document. Yeah.
So some really good and fun stuff. So that said, shall we continue to discuss what we talked briefly about some of the kind of next section kind of coming up together. We talked about adding the FBI and that they're involved now and things like that. Shall we open up our outline and see where we're up to?
Sure.
Sounds good.
All right. So
thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate it.
Yes.
And also for listening as well. Have we been adding
we have been having some people listen on Spotify and on iTunes.
Yes.
So the audio episodes definitely get up a little bit slower than the video ones, but they are slowly getting up there.
Yes, there's a whole extra workflow we have to do after the fact to get
but yes, they will eventually all be on both iTunes and Spotify for your convenience. It's fun. You won't be able to see what we're doing right now, which is actually looking at our actual outline, but you can listen along.
Yes.
To our witty banter. So anyway, basically what we wrote down is just a bunch of bullet point notes. We said that we need a beat where Zod realizes that it's Charlize in that earlier scene. And some of these I want to go back and make sure that we put them in now so that we don't forget about them.
Yeah.
We said, the FBI is going to get involved. The obstacles become more complicated. They're going to find Charlize's car. Zod ends up kidnapping the boyfriend and kid. We were talking about that maybe being significantly later.
Yes.
Not really sure how that is going to work. But we also said a cool visual. Let's have them disappear into a mirror inside Sam's apartment before the cops actually show up. Maybe they even show up at the bookstore in some way through a mirror again, like that being their almost transportation aspect, which I think is just cool. And that actually, if they do show up at the bookstore when the FBI is on top of Charlize and the others, that does Zod somehow end up getting arrested by our FBI agent? And is there an interrogation room scene whereby he then walks straight into the two-way mirror and totally freaks everyone out?
Totally fun. Really fun.
One thing to think again about Zod is that he doesn't know that Charlize will be there or Hank when he gets there. And that's back to that earlier note of needing that beat, right?
Yes.
This is a job for him at first. The job is, as the general of the demons, to come and get the Antichrist and to make sure that her change happens so that their millennia-old mission comes to fruition. And then it becomes personal. And the personal aspect being both with Charlize and Hank, because Hank killed other demons through his course of being a demon hunter, and Charlize obviously has a past with him. And what does he do that is smart and creative as a way to have a new obstacle for Charlize later on. And this was something we talked about. Yesterday's episode was initially going to be about escalating obstacles, which the villain plot absolutely helps with. But it's how does what he's doing over the course of Act 2 make things harder and harder? And so what we said was maybe towards the end of Act 2, Zod captures the family and says, either you hand over Sam or I kill your family, and potentially puts her in that kind of Sophie's choice situation.
Dilemma.
And then does Sam leave on her own volition? One thing I'm thinking about from structural aspect is, so Charlize lives in this small town at the beginning. She then and she lives with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's kid. She owns this bookstore in this small town, and I think that's great. It's a little weird to me, but maybe we can get around it, that we go back there now. That I'm fine with, but then we would somehow escape there, only to then have Zod capture the boyfriend later again.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works.
How structurally, like, if Zod goes to the town now at the midpoint-ish, is he not going to know that Charlize's boyfriend is here? Does he not find that information out? Unless, this could be interesting. I'm just kind of tossing
riff away.
Okay, so Charlize and everybody go back to hometown because in her bookstore there's a bunch of scrolls that she didn't even think to look through because it was never really in her mind that she could somehow reverse this. And yet it can be reversed. Maybe there's a clue. We're going to try and find a clue. We're there. FBI track the car. They go there. We end up in a bit of a standoff with the FBI. We're in our midpoint now because, oh, fuck. Charlize figures out, yes, there is actually a way that we can reverse this spell. Now we just have to get away from these fucking FBI agents in order to get you there before you turn, which you're turning quickly. Okay? Zod and gang show up. Okay? Zod gets kidnapped, or not kidnapped. Zod gets taken by FBI. We are now in 2.2. Okay? Charlize and them start to go towards their new quest. And maybe there's an obstacle to that isn't the FBI or Zod, but rather something else that we think about in terms of how to get there. Whether it's that they're, maybe they're on the most, they're all over the internet. There's a Ambro, whatever. They can't be airplanes because the airports are going to track them, or whatever it is that we need to figure out, right? But they've got other obstacles that are going to make it really hard. But the biggest obstacle is that now Sam is turning. And turning hardcore. Meanwhile, back with the FBI, we get the Zod interrogation. Okay? Zod gets interrogated. Cool moment where he leaves. And in the interrogation, the FBI fuck up because what they reveal to Zod is that Charlize had a family. And it's through that scene that Zod goes, really? A boyfriend? And actually it becomes almost personal too if we kind of create that there was almost a weird...
totally a weird...
End Act 2 now, Zod kidnaps boyfriend. And now that's the dark. We've made it all the way to the darkest moment, whereby Zod then brings her to Charlize, and we have to do Sophie's choice.
I like that. I like that flow of events.
And I actually think that will allow. That is the progression that we're looking for.
I think so too.
Because the biggest obstacle is: do I let my boyfriend and his kid die, or do I let Sam become the Antichrist, in which case
and then interestingly we take the decision away from her. We don't make her make it.
No, we have Sam do it on her own, which I like.
I like that.
Then we got to figure out Act 3. At that point we're into Act 3.
Yeah, it's great. I really like that a lot. I find that to be a good
where we are. Okay, so I'm going to push all these down.
Yeah.
We can always come back and then delete them as we kind of
yeah.
hit them. What I want to do first is I want to go back and have this beat with Zod in that moment where he sees Charlize for the first time in 100 years.
Totally.
And I do think that them implying that there was, even if it wasn't, I mean, I don't know, like, do demons have sex? Maybe they probably do. Actually, it feels very demonish, right?
Totally. Demon
so, like,
sex.
if Charlize was Zod's girl,
or Zod was Charlize's man.
Yes. Sure. That's an even bigger betrayal. Not just that I started to develop human emotions and that I ran away, but that, like, we were at least each other's fuck buddies.
Sure, totally. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So
demonic fuck buddies. That's the title of a book I want to write at some point.
What is it?
Demonic fuck buddies.
So we have this obsidian ring, right?
Yes.
I think we need to, and I'm going to put, there's a note here, and the note says, what is the ring and what is its importance? The ring should be the ring that Zod gave her. Just to imply, it's not a wedding ring, but to imply that they're more than just comrades.
Yeah. They're more than
and if it's not a ring, it could be an obsidian pendant.
Sure.
It's my necklace.
Yeah.
The one you gave, the one you
gave
took from the Black Rock of Mount Doom.
Yeah.
But like
totally.
This should be, establish that this is something she got from him. And they are in a sexual relationship. And that is probably just going to come along with the way in which they talk and treat each other. But what's interesting is that Charlize is having second thoughts. And I think that that's the betrayal as well. And then he goes to, like, fuck her up down there, which, he's a demon, he can do.
But again, it can be difficult. It's like, I want,
you fucking betrayed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I trusted you. You were the only one I trusted, like that kind of a thing. Like a demon trusting someone. Really? Now, in this scene.
Yes.
Zod comes in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Zod has bigger crew. Sam and Hank work together. And then Zod and gang show up.
Yes. Zod cannot believe it's her.
Holy shit.
Yep.
It's Charlize.
Yep.
And one of his crew should recognize Hank. After 100 years, this is where he finds her. Maybe there's even a question. Wait. It's kind of complicated. Like, are you trying to get back?
Yeah, totally. That's it.
Are you here to help us?
Yeah, because he's asking the same thing that Hank is asking. Like, what side are you on right now?
He's on in this moment.
Out of all the places in all the world, this was the last place I thought I was going to find you.
Right? Seriously?
Yeah.
One of the others.
Yeah.
Recognize Hank as someone who's killed one of their buddies before. Then there is Charlize, Hank, are we in or out? Then after that, they get away, right?
Yeah.
We need to go back in. So Hank take off the streets. We go back into the apartment first, interior, because then we'll go out onto the streets and have them being chased.
Right.
Or we could go chase and then back into the apartment. The cops are showing back up and they go into the
Let's do that
thing. So chase and then interior Sam's apartment. Maybe they're looking around the apartment for anything useful.
Yeah.
Night. Zod and crew, they're like, recovering from the fights,
Yes.
recovering from fight, and we still haven't figured out exactly what we do to them that's going to fuck them up enough for us to get away.
Yeah.
Hank should have a really cool device. Like Hank has some sort of almost like a gas grenade that would be bad for demons. Like what?
Maybe. I mean, there's also, Brad, is there something visual that we could do? Like, do they get does the car crash and explode? But then we see them with all their fucking flesh, but then reforming. Is there something like that?
In the more expensive version, sure.
Sure.
Also, just to again bring up Constantine.
Yes, sure.
Image of the flesh coming off of Constantine, but not a huge deal. But maybe. I like the CGI reforming of flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Police are making their way up.
Yeah.
They find a mirror in Sam's apartment and disappear.
Yeah.
Before just as the cops are entering.
Great. And
so then we go to we're in the Chevy.
Yeah.
The next thing is the FBI getting involved. So the scene that we're cutting to now, we were going to say that they find Charlize's car.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
At the place. And we can now, well, we don't know where they're headed yet, do we?
We don't.
There might be, and I owe it to her to try. So here, it's got to be We'll Kill Her. So we would learn. If we go to my bookshop, there's some ancient scrolls I have that might have the answer in it or something like that.
Sure.
So that we know where we're going.
Yeah.
And how long did we say the journey here would be? At least 2 days.
At least 2 days.
Which is great. That's actually perfect because what I want to do then is the next morning is when the FBI or the whole thing is taped off. And we meet our FBI agents.
Great.
Exterior Sam's apartment building, morning.
What happened to the boyfriend? I don't remember.
He might be the person they're talking to. He was tied up.
He was tied up. And he didn't get gunned down in the fight. He survived. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Great.
We never say that he does.
Yeah.
It says... We actually don't say anything about the boyfriend.
We don't say anything about the boyfriend, so we just kind of need to track.
Oh, no, here. She sees the boyfriend grabbed by a gloved hand.
Okay.
He'd be tied up in a chair.
Yeah, tied up in a chair. Great. Totally. Awesome.
Actually, it'd be really fun if the whole fight's going on and he's like,
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Tied up in a chair. They're going, he's like hopping the chair back to the wall,
Yeah. We tried to do it goofy, but yeah.
No, but fun. Again, it's I don't think this movie should take itself too seriously also either, because then we are in Constantine land, or Terminator land.
Yeah, I think we get
a very slight lightness to this.
Yeah,
not 100%.
No,
like almost in a one notch to the serious of James Gunn. Interestingly enough, not as out there as James Gunn, but potentially fun. What's the fun level? I want to make sure that we're having fun in this movie.
Yeah, and it's funny because Midnight Run is a comedy, but it's not a laugh out loud comedy. But the music cues are definitely comedic.
Right.
It's definitely got you we're in a fun sequence now where this happens, and the mob in it don't feel like they're dangerous mob. They feel like the goofy mob, they're like that. And that's not what we're doing at all. It's I think we get the humor in this movie through the banter between characters. And yes, maybe it's something like that along the lines of the boyfriend hopping aside, knocking him, pushing himself over so he's out of the way and things like that.
I think it's just like, nobody is a great example.
Nobody's a good example. Yeah.
Nobody from Derek Kolstad from our last interview, has some wonderfully comedic moments, and yet is a very much
give me the fucking kitty cat bracelet.
Yes, everything with Christopher Lloyd was great. So if I'd love to find that tone in there, especially because we're dealing with like a demon hunter, and the Antichrist. Like it's innately has a bit
inherently,
of a it's like a nod.
It's almost like the start of a joke.
Right. A demon hunter, and then the Antichrist walk into a bar. In fact, it'd be hysterical.
We should have that line in it.
They do that on their way. Yeah. So they have to stop over on their way to Colorado.
Totally. They stop in a little motel.
Bar. Yeah. You wanted to have a biker gang.
Sure did.
Let's have the biker gang scene.
Sounds great.
Do we
that's a funny line. And it's like you could totally see David Harbour as Hank delivering that line.
Totally.
Demon Hunter, Demon and the Antichrist.
They think might be involved.
Right.
Running a trace.
Great.
The cop should be like, why do you think it might be involved? They open the trunk and they find all of Charlize's shit.
Great. Oh, that's great. Conk. Well, there's that. Yeah, great. Yeah, great. So police tape, cops everywhere, FBI guy shows up. I'm just reading this out loud for the purpose of our listeners. This is outside Sam's apartment building morning. One of the cops located a car they think might be involved. They're running a trace. Why do you think it might be involved? They open the trunk and it's Charlize's shit.
Yeah.
Guns, etc.
So, what could be funny is actually if it's in the afternoon. Because like I see this great image of like the biker bar that like it's everybody's drinking during the day.
Sure.
And like they're just wanting to stop somewhere and they're in like wherever between like Portland and Colorado. It's like some little town somewhere.
Yeah. Right.
And the only place that has like a burger or something is like
it's this like biker bar. Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Exterior biker bar.
Yeah.
Day. Hank and the gang pull up. So they get out of the car, head to the entrance.
And what happens here? Is there something fun about Sam? Does someone try? We've already had this moment. Ignore that's why I think it's a good moment, because it's a good moment of Sam fucking someone up.
Right.
Someone coming on to Sam. What I was seeing was someone coming on to Sam and Sam like fucking throwing this guy through a fucking cubicle. Whatever it is. But it feels too similar to the scene we've already had.
Yeah, and it's actually we have three really interesting characters here.
We do.
And Sam is changing and becoming darker. What would be interesting is that if they all get into a fucking bar, if they end up causing a full-on bar brawl.
Sure.
And Sam could start it this time. Instead of the other guy, she stole from him in that scene.
Yeah.
But, does Sam say, fuck off, asshole?
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, would you say bitch? And then Hank gets in the way.
Right.
Get the fuck away. And the guy whatever. And then Charlize steps in front of Hank.
Yeah.
And it turns into a fucking bar brawl. So wait, your mom is going to fight for you? And she's like, who are you calling a mom?
Yeah.
Boom. Right. And then we get like this huge big bar brawl inside.
Yeah. Super fun. Yeah, that's great. That's really great.
Interior biker bar. Day. Now, I don't know if we're cutting away. I don't think so. I think this is just one continuous sequence. Is biker.
I think so too.
I think we can get more exposition as they're sitting at the bar. Let's have them sitting at the bar.
Yes.
And she orders like, "I'll take a burger, charred, as black as you can make it, please."
Yeah, great.
And then it comes
fried
out
chicken to the Coke.
and they're like, "You're actually going to eat that?" She's like, You want a bite?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great.
The gang sit at the bar, look at the food menu.
Yeah. Food menu in a biker bar.
I love it. Orders.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny. Orders the burger.
Yeah.
It's that great scene, Hell or High Water, where it's the waitress and the thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You want steak or steak?"
Yes,
You know, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, what else? I guess I'll have steak. Maybe the waitress is like, we got burgers.
Yeah.
You have cheese? No.
Yeah, totally. Great. Yeah, totally.
Extra
it's like one of those places where you're like, how is this restaurant even still open?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, great. Fun.
People don't actually eat the food here.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think we can have a conversation where they do get to know. I mean, this is one of those moments you need an act two, right? They start to get to know each other here on an actually more personal level. And I'm going to leave it at this because this is an important scene to talk about.
It is. And I also want to add, is Sam going through a bit of withdrawal now as well?
Ooh.
And it's interesting because it's almost like her allegory is about her drug use.
That's interesting. I mean, is the first thing she does is the reason they pull over because she's going to throw up.
Yeah. Totally.
And she's having withdrawal. Yeah. I don't know how quickly it happens. We'll have to, I mean, it doesn't really matter. We can.
Yeah.
Maybe they head to the entrance. Sam is gonna puke and runs inside.
Yeah.
The demon hunter and the Antichrist walk into a bar. They get to know each other at first level.
That's going to be the episode. That's going to be the title of tomorrow's episode.
That is the title of tomorrow's episode. All right, everyone. So listen, thank you so much for joining us. This has been actually a fantastic episode. And don't forget, Thursday, 2 p.m., screenwriter Matthew Sand of Deepwater Horizon, fantastic movie and fantastic writer, and also our mentor, will be joining us again live for an interview to talk about his process.
Hooray!
So don't forget to set your Apple notifications, whatever the fuck you said.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, man.